A very warm welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new episode of Africa Today, our show that brings you all the latest news and events happening all around the Black Continent. My name is Angie Meher, and as usual, we begin straight away with a look at some of the news making the headlines, and we start with news from home, where an international exhibition for the agro-food industry in Africa kick-started in Cairo. The event is described as a means of building a network of international traders and vendors to attract wholesalers, distributors, retailers and other industry professionals to address the needs of all elements in the market all around the continent. We have more details in this report.
The Egyptian capital hosted on Monday an international exhibition for the agri-food industry in Africa, with over 700 exhibitors from more than 30 countries. Held at Cairo's International Exhibition Center, the 7th edition of Food Africa aims to provide an efficient network between international traders and vendors with their counterparts from Egypt, the Middle East and the African region. The three-day event is set to attract wholesalers, distributors, retailers and other industry professionals to address the different needs of both buyers and importers, as well as to serve new markets in Egypt and Africa. Participants say they visit the expo every year to search for new business opportunities and meet new suppliers to see the fastest developments in the agri-food sector. Several deals are set to be signed during the expo. Participants say they can find raw material providers at the expo while meeting potential buyers.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest for this afternoon, Engineer Mustafa Wali, the economic expert. A very good afternoon to you, sir. Hello?
Hello?
Good afternoon to you, Engineer Mustafa. How are you?
After you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Let me start by asking you about the international exhibition for the agro-food industry that kicked off in Cairo. Tell me about the importance of such exhibitions, how they're organized to attract and build networks of international traders, wholesalers, as well as vendors to serve the needs of the market.
Of course, it goes without saying that having such meetings or such exhibitions where the most important parties who are in certain business are getting together to see what they can get together. And in this case, we are talking about very important and essential commodities in human beings' life. That's food. And agro industries in general is a source, the main source. If it's not the main, it's one of the main sources for supplying food for people. And to have such international gathering or international exhibition like that with around 30 countries and more than 100 exhibitors, as I have heard and I know, this is something great, and everybody is trying to show the best of what he can offer when it comes to commodity, when it comes to the product or the prices or the latest technologies also are there.
Engineer Mustafa, how would you describe Egypt's position in the agro-food industry?
Well, out of my knowledge, actually, being sometime, from good time, I was taking care of the Federation of Egyptian Industries. The Chamber of Food Industry is very important chamber, and that's very successful business, represents very successful business in Egypt.
Yes.
And always it was expanding to the limit of course, exports of Egyptian products, food products manufactured and, packed and shipped from Egypt. I think in the food industry we have a record. We have even a history, at least compared to Africa in general, and also some areas in the Middle East. And in this case, I think we are doing fine, and I'm following to some extent the progress, and it comes from also the progress in having a good agro business. First of all, we should have agro products. We should have crops. We should have all what we can export. I mean, what we need and we can export. And there is a lot of development in this. Look at the most important thing, increasing the green area, I mean the agricultural area, when a lot of estimation for the deserts, and using the latest technology of irrigation and fertilizing and all this. This all contribute to better situation, better production.
Absolutely. Engineer Mustafa, now many economists say that agriculture is set to be a major growth driver for the African continent over the next few years. How do you see agriculture playing this role, specifically amid the current global challenges with the Russian-Ukrainian war, issues related to supply chains, food security, etc.? How important do you see this sector?
I mean, the current situation, without getting into detail, proved exactly and proved clearly the importance of how much you should be self-sufficient in the basic food, you know, in the food, this is the most essential of human being's life. And in Egypt, we were a bit lucky so far because we managed to curb some of the problems. But in general, if we are not fully self-sufficient in the strategic crops, for example, we talk now agriculture and produce and crops, it's the wheat. This shows you how much it can cost us for any disturbance in the market, or in the international market in this case. But for other crops and for other vegetables and fruits, we are doing fine. We are exporting, and we have the infrastructure for exporting when it comes to packing, when it comes to cold stores. Over the years, I was following more or less the development in this area, and it's promising. But the most important thing is that we have to care for the strategic crops. Mainly, of course, wheat and maize, and that's essential.
These are the staples, indeed. Let's talk a bit about technology. Engineer Mustafa, you mentioned the issue of technology. How has this played and impacted the agricultural sector in Egypt and many African countries? Well,
actually, you can't say that you have robust and developed agriculture unless the agro-industry concept is there. For example, from planting of the seed, and irrigation for vast areas to cope with the increase in the population in general, especially in the third world or the developing world, and Egypt one of them, unless we will have the efficient and the suitable and fast and robust technology, which will help in coping with the demand of the production of the agricultural production and the agro product in general. There could be a problem. And frankly speaking, the latest technologies when it comes to irrigation systems for planting, from planting, preparation of the land, and then planting, and then the irrigation system, and then harvesting. You have the latest technologies. Always will help. Always will help.
Right. Engineer Mustafa, now according to many reports, there is a need to shift from, subsistence farming or just to, sustain your nation to more agro-processing. How important is it to make this shift and widen it, especially in the short term, even before the long term?
Well, I couldn't hear exactly the base of the question.
What I'm asking you, yes, engineer, is how important is it to shift from just subsistence farming, just to satisfy the needs of your country, to agro-processing, to really start exporting?
That's what you call an added value, of course. That's the term, economic term for this is how for certain source or certain input you can increase the value of it with some work over it. For example, we were mentioning this when we were talking right now. Imagine if you have a very, very efficient and excellent, according to standard norms, cold stores, where vegetables and fruits are very sensitive and should be kept to the best. And in this case, these cold stores will help, because this immediately will let you have, if you have a surplus, and we have surplus of fruits and such items, to export it. Then we are increasing your income, your national income, by just, introducing technology into and making it better even to compete in the international market, because we have also competitors from other countries and from other continents than Africa.
Absolutely. A final question, Engineer Mustafa, if I may. How do you see the importance of creating other industries to support the agricultural sector? For example, you can harvest, but how do you process this harvest to turn it into products, not just the raw harvest itself? How important is it to invest in that part of agricultural development?
I heard you talking about harvesting. What exactly?
Yes, the importance of after harvesting fruits and vegetables and wheat. How do we create more products, to industrialize the situation? So, for example, making jams, making...
I got it.
Yes.
Sorry. It's very clear. You mentioned even a very important product,
Yes.
From fruits you can get jam, and not only this. Let me tell you something, that the residual and what sometimes was called the waste, of the crops, or for the green products or the produce.
Yes.
A lot can be done and improved to be even as fertilizer. That's actually in the, agriculture being one of the first activities in human history, in the human being history. The development over it from irrigation over the years, centuries up till now is a very, very impressive story.
Absolutely. Right. Engineer Mustafa Wali, our economic expert, thank you very, very much, sir, for your time and your insight on today's edition of Africa Today. And we move to more news items, this time going to Sudan, where generals and the main pro-democracy group signed a framework deal to end the country's crisis. The framework appears to offer the broadest outlines for how the country will resume its progression to democracy. More details in this report.
Sudan's coup leaders and the main pro-democracy group signed a deal on Monday to establish a civilian-led transitional government following the military takeover last year. But key players refused to participate, and no deadline was set for the transition to begin. The framework, signed by General Abdel Fattah Burhan, General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, and the leaders of the Forces for the Declaration of Freedom and Change, appears to offer only the broadest outlines for how the country will resume its progression to democracy. That process was upended in October 2021 when Burhan unseated the civilian half of Sudan's ruling Sovereignty Council with Dagalo's backing. Since then, international aid has dried up, and bread and fuel shortages, caused in part by the war in Ukraine, have become routine, plunging Sudan's already inflation-riddled economy into deeper peril. Near-weekly pro-democracy marches were held. Deadly tribal clashes have flared in the country's neglected peripheries. It is not clear whether or how quickly the deal signed Monday can offer a way out for Sudan, given that it appears to leave many thorny issues unresolved and does not have the support of key political forces, including the grassroots pro-democracy resistance committees. That network's leaders called for demonstrations against the agreement. Several former rebel leaders who have formed their own political bloc have also rejected the deal. Many of the points in a draft of the deal were already promised in a 2020 agreement that saw Sudan's previous transitional government make peace with several rebels in Sudan's far-flung provinces. According to the draft, the deal envisions Sudan's military eventually stepping back from politics. The document says it will form part of a new Security and Defense Council under the appointed Prime Minister. But it does not address how to reform the armed forces, saying only they should be unified and controls should be imposed on military-owned companies. It makes specific mention of Sudan's paramilitary force, the Rapid Support Force headed by Dagalo.
And now moving to South Africa, where the ruling party rallied around the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. And this came as the country's National Assembly delayed a parliamentary vote that could lead to his impeachment. We have the details.
South Africa's National Assembly on Monday delayed by a week a keenly watched parliamentary vote that could lead to the impeachment of President Cyril Ramaphosa as his party rallied around the embattled leader. In an eventful day, Ramaphosa, who has been under heavy political pressure, mounted an 11-hour legal bid to have a damning report on an alleged cover-up of a cash robbery at his farm annulled. Top African National Congress leaders who had met to discuss his future vowed to stand by the president and oppose any motion seeking to remove him. Parliament was due to debate and vote on the report on Tuesday in a session that could lead to his impeachment. But during a late-night urgent meeting of the Parliament's Programming Committee, the lawmakers unanimously agreed that the unprecedented sitting was too important to be conducted in a hybrid format. They agreed to meet on Tuesday, December 13. It aims to allow time for lawmakers to travel to Cape Town to physically sit and vote through an open ballot. The delay is unlikely to change the stance of the ANC, which agreed earlier it will not support that vote. Earlier Monday, Ramaphosa had filed a petition to the Constitutional Court seeking to have the investigative report reviewed, declared unlawful, and set aside.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of today's edition of Africa Today. We do hope you have enjoyed it. Join us again tomorrow, just after 2 p.m. for a new episode. Till then, you're in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Many thanks for watching.